Welcome back, everybody, to the Lost Legion podcast. I am joined, as always, by Daniel, the future LVO champion, and by JR. Nobody really cares what my achievements are, Dieter.
It's almost been a year. It doesn't matter anymore.
I care what my achievement are.
Gentlemen, thank you.
To the Mando bus.
Thank you for joining me. Appreciate it. We have some big news, some huge news we got on today's topics. First, we got our points changes. Still no love for the GAR. Surprise, surprise. And we got
get that out of here. Get it out of here.
And then we got some, I guess, preview article is a good way to say it, about the LOS changes coming out. Before that, let's go into some podcast news. I'm going to drop a big bomb on everybody out in podcast land. This is my last podcast. My last episode being on, I might pop on if the boys will have me as a guest here and there. It's nothing personal, nothing wrong, anything like that. It's merely I start school on January 9th. I am taking, I think it's 2 credits short of being considered a full-time student and working full-time. So I'm not going to have much of a life.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So thank you, everybody, for listening to the wonderful sound of my voice. I know that it's probably the best thing you will ever get to hear.
Oh, God.
But let's jump into some points. These are done last week. I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share. That way you all can see this amazing, I say doing screen share as I'm looking, guys, amazing point changes that have happened. So, Daniel, you want to take the Empire?
Sure. I mean, we're just reading off of this right here. We've got the Mortar Troopers going from 38 up to 40, and the Death Troopers range 4 gun going from 34 down to 30. Neither of these, I think, are going to be that crazy of a change. Probably the mortars did need to go up a little bit. It's just the Empire has a lot of activation padding options, so them going up to 40 is okay. And I don't think this 4 points is going to be enough to make Death Troopers serious. It's nice, but I don't think it's going to change much.
I agree. I didn't think there was that problem with the motors.
Yeah, I don't really think it's a problem, but like I understand where you're like, 2 more points probably makes sense. Like 40 seems like just as good a price for them as 38 in my mind. I don't see a huge difference between them, but yeah.
What I like about, but
go ahead.
I was gonna say what I like that there's not that many changes to Empire is that this reflects that Empire's in a good spot, and I feel like the Death Troopers unit should have went down a little, but still, this is just like fixing the niches and notches in a faction that just needs to iron out the details.
Yep, I was just about to say that. I think this is a great sign as a Empire, former Empire player, or those of you playing Empire, you're in a great spot. I agree with JR. I don't know if, and Daniel, I don't know if 4 points on the gun really matters. I think Death Troopers they need to just a rework, couple new keywords. I'm not too sure, but they need a little help. But I think that's one of the few units for the Empire I would say that about. Besides my boy Krennic.
Yeah, I mean, I generally agree that like Death Troopers are probably not the greatest unit for Empire, but they're not bad. Like honestly, like if you take a full Death Trooper with the gun, that's going to be 102 points. It's not that expensive for 5 guys that can shoot crazy well at range 4 and have surging red saves. Like, do they have a weakness? Sure they do, but that's not the end of the world. It's just, I think they're in a fine spot. They don't see a lot of play, but
what I like about Death Troopers is that they're not spammable. And I feel like that's your goal to do in an army is not have spammable units, because spammable units, as we see right now, kind of just curves the meta into a spamming army.
Or even just make the game boring. I don't want to fight 6 of the same thing 3 games in a row. Like that's boring.
Yeah. So let's move on to Gar. I'm gonna take almost all the guard.
Okay.
Just
Look at all
'cause-
this guard love right here.
Look-
Look at all this. Look
Okay.
at all this.
Okay, I'm gonna start from the bottom up. Clone medic goes down 5 points. Nobody takes the clone medic. I still
Well,
won't pay
they
15.
didn't used to. I'm taking the clone medic now. Like 15 points for 2 bodies. You can put it on a phase 2. I think that's a huge change. People were complaining about the Ambam rifle. That's a direct counter to the Ambam rifle. Take that with Yoda. Yes.
I disagree. I still 15 points isn't.
15
I don't know if I want
points.
to take the medic.
It's not that bad. And like that's still an extra black to your dice pool.
That is
You know,
true.
it's I mean I like I said, I've been playing a lot of TTS games, trying to iron out my new LVO list, and Rex Star's making a comeback. And
Mhm.
people that play Rex or just the clone boys aggressively, man, they do a lot of damage and it hurts, but you got to do the damage. This gives you a good opportunity to do damage and heal.
Yep. No, I like it a lot.
I don't. Okay, clones are expendable. They don't need to be healed. Okay.
I think you're thinking of battle droids.
Oh my bad. Next up, clone engineer, down 4 points. Again,
Yeah, I don't care about that one.
yeah, don't really care.
Republic vehicles, like I guess if you're running a saber tank, it's nice, but that's so niche.
I mean, what about the ISP or ATRTs? Barks?
I don't know if
Barks
it's
have been
worth
making a
it
good
to pay
comeback.
that much for an extra health on the ISP.
Right,
It's
and
like the
then
ISP is just not that strong of a vehicle.
your barks are going to outrun that engineer in turn 1.
Yeah.
That's true.
I think this is probably a good points cost for the engineer, right? 14, I think, is probably a good points cost, but I don't think you're going to see it because Republic doesn't care about supporting its vehicles that much. It's a trooper-based army.
Not yet, anyways. We got Clone Commander.
That's
Cody
true
coming
with
out.
Cody coming out. Yeah, actually, I could see this being in a list where you've got Cody and a saber, and you've got an engineer just as an extra health.
I mean, to be fair, we're probably going to see R2 because R2's better at it than the Clone Engineer. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have the option for secret mission.
But it's not terrible.
yeah,
There are 2 in the lot, repair the lot on the way.
But I don't think this changes what the typical Republic list looks like at all.
No. Next up, clone comms tech. Man, that's a tongue twister. Down by 1 point. I'm still not going to bring it.
Yeah, I think this is not an interesting change.
What
But
does
then
this one do
again-
again?
That gives you
It gives
the
you
comms
the-
upgrade.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess not that big of a deal.
it's an extra body, which is fine. It's only 1 more point than the regular body. Is that right?
I believe so.
So I guess if you really want to take a comms upgrade, I don't know.
Which I don't see why you really would. I mean, link target.
If you're doing fire support, maybe. If you're doing fire support and you want to do, use some HQ uplinks, I don't know. I don't think that Gar has the points to be splurging for an extra comms upgrade on clone troopers, but
Not if they do a loadout that the rumor is that the articles are coming out.
yeah, I don't think that they'll do loadouts. I don't think
No.
you do a points adjustment and then say, now we're ignoring points. That just seems unlikely to me.
I don't
But,
know.
you
All
know-
the neutral upgrades went up, so that means people could
I-
spend more on them.
with AMG's history though, I would not be surprised.
Maybe.
I'm just saying. Clone comms tech, we did that one. Clone commander, down 2 points. This is the upgrade, so still not taking him.
Yeah. Again, I think this is a good cost for him though, because this is similar to where the capos are sitting. I think it's probably appropriate for all the officers to be a similar cost.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're taking him just for an extra body, you might as well take the comms tech. But I don't know. Those 4 right there, I would give you the argument for the medic. But other than that, they're still.
Yeah, I
Really
think the
good.
other 3 don't really matter.
Yeah, they're still gonna be sitting in the corner and not painted. The next we're gonna move up to the Z6. Phase 1 Z6 down a point.
I think that's
Nice.
good.
It's nice.
Yeah, it's pretty fair.
Yeah.
I do like just this next group of changes because they're clearly encouraging you to take heavy weapons. And I think that is exactly what they should be doing with the clone troopers.
Well, okay, so why don't you go ahead and take the other 2 weapons for the phase ones.
Okay, so we've got the DP-23 phase 1 trooper. It's down from 22 to 20, so it's a 2-point drop. Not much, but rewarding you a little bit for taking those heavy weapons. And then we've got the DC-15, which is probably the one that you'll be taking, and that's 26 down to 24. Usually people are taking the DC-15 or the Z6. And so I think it's nice to throw back a couple points for that.
This is my problem with it. Has a clone player, this is my problem. It is all phase 1.
Yep.
What's wrong with that?
Well, you can see what they're doing here. Well, go ahead. Yeah.
What's wrong with that for me is I still have no reason to take a phase 2 trooper. I'm not going to pay.
You have
I'm not
two
going to
reasons.
pay. I'm not going to pay 8 extra points for a surge token.
You have 2 reasons to take phase 2s.
Okay.
First reason, -1 point. Second reason, minus another point. Bad.
but so it's a base cost
yeah.
of 60 for a phase 2.
Yep.
A naked phase 2. A naked phase 1's what?
52.
Yeah.
So I can get a full squad here, or not full, but I can 52. Let's just use the DC 1524. So for 74 points, I get a full squad and a heavy weapon of phase 1s, or a squad of phase 2.
Well, that would be phase 2s with a medic.
And on top of that, you're
I'm
paying
sorry.
I want my medic.
You're paying for the courage value. The courage value.
The courage is a big deal.
Very huge.
I like the philosophy behind these changes because you can see what they're clearly trying to do is like, hey, we don't want you to spam cheap phase 1s. What we want you to do is take elite phase 1s with the heavy weapon or take phase 2s. So they took almost all the phase 1 weapons, made them cheaper, and took the phase 2s and made them cheaper. So I kind of like that element of like, hey, we want you to take more elite core. I don't know if they did it enough. We'll kind of see probably as games happen, but I like that idea. I think that's the right direction for Gar.
So with these changes,
what you can do is you can just like we said, not spamming units. You won't have to spam a lot of phase 1s. You probably have phase 1s with, let's say, the DC-15. Then you got phase 2s with the medic in it, right? The phase 2s are more reliable, and then especially with the medic, you can heal. Whereas your DC-15 phase 1s are in the back shooting. Like it's going in the right direction, like Daniel was saying.
It's going in the right direction, but for me, looking at this, it does not change any Gar list. It does not change the play styles. It's not going to change. It's not going to change the Gar meta at all. I do not see it changing.
100%. You haven't.
Well, I think the biggest change for Gar is still to come. Because I don't think like these upgrades, I agree. If they only did this, I'd say it's not going to change a lot. But the other 2 upgrades, I think, do change a lot.
What are those other 2 upgrades, Dieter?
The other 2 are ARC Troopers Strike Team is now 24 points instead of 27, 3 points. And then the ARC Troopers are 76 down to 72, down 4 points.
So this list is actually wrong. The ARC Troopers used to be 78. So they're down 6 points from where they were.
Huge.
Right?
Is it 72?
It is
Wookiee?
huge.
No.
Let me.
Wookiee Warriors Kashyyyk Defenders are 72, whereas the regular melee Wookiee Warriors are 69.
And I like this change a lot. I want to see more full arcs. And I think because the full arcs are cheaper, you can now have a more, hey, I'm going to go elite gun line. You have your elite arcs. You have some cheaper medics to help them out. You have some phase 2s to give them surges. And then everybody's like, you've got your elite gun line again. I feel like without this ARC Trooper change, not much changes for Gar. But because ARC Troopers now cost similar to Wookiees, I think you now have more list building options.
I disagree because I'm going to take Wookiees over ARCs 90% of the time.
You're got a certain play style because like on TTS, the clones players that I'm seeing that are bringing different lists are wide and vast. Like there's so many different lists that they bring. You got 3 Barch Rex, you got Padme Anakin, you got Wookiees, Fluttercraft, and Yoda. Like there's crazy lists out there.
Right. Just because there's crazy lists out there, I can make a crazy list out of anything. Does not mean that it's competitive.
I think they're competitive. Well, the list I've been playing has been competitive.
I think that
So
this
that-
helps the 501st a ton because you can take just one phase 2 now, which is cheaper, and your arcs are all cheaper. And so now all of a sudden 501st goes from being like just a bunch of bad units to being at least a bunch of much more balanced units. And so I think it'll be interesting to see what people are able to do with that battle force. And I think Rexstar is probably going to see a little bit of a comeback just because you can make an elite gun line and it doesn't cost. I mean, you're saving like what? You're saving 7 points, 6 points per arc that you put in and 2 points per phase 2. You're saving like 10 to 20 points depending on what you run.
yeah, but is
Yeah.
it 10 to 20 points enough?
That's true. And that's what we'll have to see. But I like the philosophy behind the changes.
What I'm hoping, and this is just me hoping, is with one of these articles, it justifies being a GAR player more. A rules change or an update, whatever you want to call it, that kind of brings back wanting to take GAR. Because right now, as a new player, why am I bringing GAR? Like, why should I invest into GAR? Other than it's from the Clone Wars, it's freaking cool.
Yeah, it is cool. But I think one thing you have to remember too is almost all the dominant lists right now just got smacked down pretty hard. So
True.
while GAR is getting 20 points cheaper, everyone else, literally every one of my lists is not legal anymore because they're 5 to 25 points over. And so every list except for GAR just went up. So it's not just like a 20-point swing for them, it's more like a 40-point swing because everyone else is getting expensive and they're getting cheaper. I think we'll see GAR make a comeback, but we'll have to see.
I hope
I'm
so.
telling you, if you play on TTS, you're already seeing them make a comeback.
You know,
Like-
hey, we're
Some
not
of that
talking,
might just be enthusiasm, though.
we're not
That's
talking
true,
about
that's true.
why I don't play at TTS anymore. All right.
That's on you. That's on you. No, you blame yourself for that.
Let's move on. Let's do some. Oh, nobody cares about the CIS. I want to do CIS. I want to do the Magna Guard's RPS rocket. Up 6 points to 34. And I was shocked. Legit, I was shocked. I would have preferred a keyword added, like cycle, or not cycle.
Yeah, the
my mind
exhaust. I
just
think that's right.
The exhaust one, whatever causes it to exhaust and cumbersome.
Oh, cumbersome. Oh my goodness.
Well, to be honest,
That's the only rocket launcher, handheld rocket launcher.
Well,
that is
these are
not
big
cumbersome.
droids. They're not puny little clone troopers. These guys, they can move with those rockets.
and on top of that, like we haven't seen the RRG yet, so we could be losing some keywords, gaining some keywords. Who knows what's gonna happen?
That is true.
I think it's
But-
unlikely that we'll see keywords moving around on cards because I know that they talked about how they didn't want to do that anymore. And that was kind of like their last batch where they made a couple changes and they're like, yeah, we don't really want to change cards anymore. And I agree with that. I think it's bad to change cards because people will be playing with wrong rules. You can change points, but probably shouldn't change what's written on the card.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's so hard because like there's nerf that happened to the RPS. Like, it's definitely justified, but
Yeah.
it's so fucking costly.
Having played the
Um,
RPS a lot, like 9 out of my last 10 games, the RPS for sure needed something. I can't imagine, like, honestly, if Pikes got more expensive and the RPS didn't, like, it becomes a squad of mags with the RPS becomes like the best unit in the game because it was really good. It was really good, even against Pikes. The only reason it wasn't winning all the time was because the B1s hate Pikes. And so, but now with Pikes getting more expensive, B1s can hang around and the RPS will win games for you. Well, except for the 6 points it now costs. And
let's
this was
move
the
on.
saddest change for me.
Let's move on to the Ion Blaster.
Oh,
It is said many times on Facebook in the group and all that stuff.
over
I'm-
nerfed. Over.
I'm all
nerfed.
for this. I'm not a fan of Ion, period. I wasn't a fan of it in X-Wing. I'm not a fan of it here. So for me, any Ion weapon that's increased in points or removed for the game is great to me.
Over
And-
nerfed.
I don't
Now,
think this is
w-
over nerf. This looks good to me. Like
No.
as a CIS player, I think
You
this
need
is,
okay. It definitely needed a nerf. So I think it should have went to 15, arguably 20. But 25, really?
yeah, I
Like that's
probably
the
would have picked
only
20. If I was picking a number, I
yeah,
probably would have picked 20.
yeah. Like it
But
didn't need
uh,
25.
I mean, the problem is the base of the dwarf is so cheap, right? So even with this 25 point
Mhm.
upgrade, oh my goodness, you're paying 25 points for a gun. You're still an 80-point unit that has armor. Like that's a big deal.
Armor
You're
3.
still
Armor 3.
okay, but how often are you using that? Oh no, I ran out of my armor 3. Like you have to be taking a lot of fire for that to matter.
But to argue it, like there's a lot of critical impact in the game, and
Yeah.
you see it a lot of times in people's lists. I
Mhm.
feel like armor isn't as great of a keyword as it used to be.
Well,
Yeah.
but again, that was a lot. A lot of that is due to pikes because the pikes just had impact, and so lists that were just they weren't even trying to fight armor. They just happened to have a ton of impact. But
Yeah.
with
And
pikes getting slapped down, I think we would have seen dwarfs back if they didn't get this 15 points up.
and
Yeah.
that your ion blaster is what, a range 4?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
most weapons with impact are 4 or less.
I would have been cool if they would have dropped down the other guns a little bit more because like
No, let's try to make something playable, but on one hand, but you know what? The other hand, let's just go ahead and buff it. Who cares?
yeah, because that critical one gun is okay. It's okay at 50. It's not worth 15 points. It's not at 10 points. It's probably worth it, but not at 15.
Yeah. I think
So
yeah. That is kind of the problem. The other guns aren't great.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't think I don't I'm not against this change. I think this change is probably correct. And then, if it needs to be changed by next year, if none of these see play, then they'll change it next year.
My thing is like I want things to be good, and yes, there needs to be nerfs, but I want them to be good as everything else. Like the stats are still
Mhm.
good, and they haven't changed. They went up a couple points, but it didn't hurt them too much. And like spiders just outshine them because of this cost. Now that this
Right.
increase should increase to 20, now they're all still good. Give Jordan a good surge to hit, all of them would be good.
I just want all the units I play to be the best units in the game. That's what I just heard from you, JR. But overall, again, only 2 changes to CIS. CIS is in a great spot.
Yeah.
I think it's a very competitive list between them and Empire. I think they're good to go. I hit the wrong button. That's why we're zooming in and out.
What's interesting is like they're not doing well in competitive play right now, but I don't think it's because of what they have. Their stuff is fine. It's because pikes were so overtuned and pikes specifically counter them. So I'll be
Yep.
really curious to see what happens with the pike changes, how
I thi-
that affects CIS.
I think it's that combined with a lot of the good CIS players switched over to Shadow Collective.
That might be true. Though
So
I think everyone's playing Empire. Everyone's in Empire. Everyone's in Shadow Collective.
I'm in Gar, last place. I'll have off my headphones.
If you switched over to a different army, Adam, then they'll be last place.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Let's because we're already a half hour in. We're barely getting to the mercs. So we got Daniel, I believe it's like your turn.
Sure. We've got the Syndicate Capo going from 45 to 48. That's good. That was needed.
Yeah.
They were way too cheap. I still don't understand why they're cheaper than the Vigos. I feel like it would be fine if they were the same cost. Either bring the Vigos down to 48 or bump these guys up to 50. I don't see why they're different costs.
How
These
much are the
guys,
Vigos?
50.
Yeah.
Because of red saves, and then
They're range
What do
2 with 4 health. If they're ever rolling saves, they're gonna die that turn.
I mean,
I
yeah,
agree. I agree that at 50, they both should be brought up to 50. But I mean, honestly, I'm happy with them getting a 3-point increase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think this is a
Yeah.
good change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Foot soldiers, Pike Syndicate foot soldiers went up 4 points. Thank gosh.
They needed it.
Whatever deity you believe in, give them a thank you, please.
Yeah, this is how it should be. 44 is a good
Yeah.
price for them. That's what is that the same as Stormtroopers?
Yep.
I would actually argue that they should be increased a little bit more. Same price as stormtroopers,
Well-
and they do a little bit more. And again, a little bit, 1 to 2 more points. Nothing drastic like 15 points.
I think one of the biggest things that kept them running was capos with vigilance. And so
Mhm.
because of that, they're going to only be performing at stormtrooper level. They're no longer going to be performing way above stormtroopers. But we'll see. Like, I could be wrong. Maybe they do need to go up again. But I think just with the other changes, they're not going to be as efficient as stormtroopers, which is how it should be.
Well, I
Peter,
still
you
think
wanna
they're more
grab an info?
efficient. Yeah, I
Oh,
still
go
think
ahead.
they're more efficient than stormtroopers. But we get on that topic later. Black Sun Vigo upgrade with up 2 points. It's now 20 points, which is probably needed.
I don't
Yep.
know. I personally have not seen that many Black Suns being fielded.
I think
Yeah,
think
but
it's
every time you see them
because-
fielded, you always see them with the Vigo because the
Right.
Vigo is so good.
it's one of those scenarios where something is outshining another source that is
Mhm.
slightly overtuned. You just don't see it because the other one's greater.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't know about this change. I don't know how I feel about it. I haven't experienced, I never played the Black Sun. I haven't played against it. And again, because it was outshined by the Pikes, I would have liked to have just kind of kept it where it is. But 2 points honestly is not that big of a difference.
Yeah.
So next up is a Pike Syndicate Capo. This is the upgrade one. That's up 2 points as well. Again, like we said earlier, I would have liked to seen it gone to 20 just to be the same price as the Black Sun.
Yeah.
But
Courage 2
I-
core should be expensive. So this is fine.
Yeah, I don't know if that's more my OCD and I want it all to look nice and pretty, but
Officers are 20, period. All of them.
overall with the Mercs, I am incredibly happy with those changes.
It's good to note that the Black Suns with the Vigo is now 68. 8 more points in phase 2.
Mhm.
And then the Pike Syndicate Foot Soldiers with the Capo is 62. 2 more points in the phase 2. So
And that's how
and
it
you
should
see,
be.
yeah, you see everybody running the Capo before the nerf, and then you see people running the Vigo, like trying to convince Adam here. Phase 2s are good, man.
Well,
Come
they have
on.
an extra body on phase 2s,
Phase 2s are good.
and they start with a free aim. So they're a little bit
not
better than phase 2s.
They're not
True,
60
true,
points
true.
good. That's my
That-
argument. I'm
that
not
could be-
saying
that
phase
could be
2s aren't
arguable.
good. I don't think they're 60 points good.
You're probably right. They probably need to be 58.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think just because Republic is so synergistic, making them a little bit cheaper makes the whole army a little bit better. So I think it's better to be safe than sorry with like, oh, we're going to do 2 points because we don't want to do like 6 and then have Rexstar win everything again.
Well, and then
That's
so that but again, we're still waiting on the rule changes, and I don't want to focus too much more on clones, but it's back to them getting double nerfed. They got nerfed with their synergies, they got nerfed with their points. To me,
Yeah.
all these prices would be perfectly well priced if you brought back their synergy of they could share tokens, all the tokens except for the standby.
Maybe.
That's it. To me, that would be the perfect synergy. Then I would justify 62 points.
Then you see more spam. Then you would
Yeah.
just spam phase 2s.
That's the clone army.
No,
The clone army spammed clones.
Yeah. I don't know.
did we not just talk about how we feel about spamming things? It doesn't always equal fun.
Okay, so Gar's core choices are phase 1s, phase 2s.
Yep.
Okay,
Those are good choices.
great choices. So one of those 2 are being spammed.
Correction, you have phase 1s, phase 2s, Black Sun, and Pikes.
They can't take
Get
Black
outta
Sun.
Oh, they can't. Yeah,
No,
you're
Black
right.
Sun's bad guys only.
That's right. They can't.
So I'm going to take us into. I did the capo. Daniel, why don't you take us into Probably
Oh,
the most
change-
surprising change.
This change is literally the change I was hoping would happen the most. I am so hyped about this change. Because
Overtuned.
Vigilance, you saw Vigilance being taken by Jedi. It's supposed to be a command upgrade. Command upgrades are supposed to be for you helping your troops. What would the Jedi do with it? They would just give themselves a free dodge. That doesn't sound like it's helping the troops. So then,
hey, if the Jedi wins the war, everybody wins the war.
yeah, I hated how this card was being used. Vader was taking it, and then we had Maul taking it, and it was just for their own stuff. Oh, it was the worst. So now we've got it from 5 points up to 12. I think this is an excellent change. I really like this.
I agree and disagree. I agree, but I wish it was 2 points cheaper. I think 12 is overkill. 10 is just the sweet spot.
I might agree with you. If I had picked a number, I probably would have picked 10. But I like going over the top because Vigilance was in every list. Like every list I made had Vigilance in it because it was so efficient. 5 points to have your own dodge all the time, or 5 points to have 2 other people's dodges. I like that now at 12, you're only getting value out of this if you're basically doing it on cores, right? Because you need to get that multiple dodges for it to matter.
As much as it hurts me, I agree with you, Daniel. It needed a nerf. Spoiler alert, it didn't affect my list. Well,
Really?
It did. It did and it did.
I was gonna say that's 7 points. That's gotta affect something.
It did affect my list, but not
all
enough
that did
to
was
be like,
affect
I
his
had to
bet.
like second guess it and be like, I don't know if I should not take this. It was like, oh, I
The
still need
truth
to take
is,
this. I need
the
to make
JR is
touchdowns
now going
somewhere
to
else.
lose by points destroyed regularly because Maul is like 300 points now.
Right. Next one, Dieter.
Oh, this one hurt the most. Burst of speed, 3 points to 10. And honestly, my opinion on this is like, yeah, I get it. It probably needed a nerf, but 10 points with this overtuning stuff, like 5. It should have been put to 5. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Because the people that are taking it that need it the most are
Yoda, Vader.
What's his name? Vader, Palpatine. They're the ones that need it. The ones that abused it were Dooku and Maul, right?
And Luke.
And Luke. But aside from those 3, the other guys really needed it. 5.
Okay, but I'm gonna ask you: do you think we're gonna see Burst of Speed still on Luke and Maul?
Yes.
Yes.
So I think 10 is probably good. They need to pay if they want to,
but
because that means that it's still worth 10 points to sometimes be moving 3 instead of 2. That's wild. Like it's true, but man.
But
that's the difference between diving or not diving.
Yep.
To be fair, so for Luke and Maul, it brings up the argument of should I take this over other Force Use upgrades? Whereas in Vader and Palpatine and Yoda, well, not so much Yoda, but Palpatine and Vader, they needed this. They absolutely needed this. And now it's just like you're paying that tax. Whereas Maul and Luke, it's just in the conversation. It's just another like icing on the cake.
Yeah, but probably like Commander Vader and Palpatine should have gotten a points decrease to accommodate for this, right? Because they weren't really overpowered with it. But I think it was way too cheap for Maul and Luke. So I like this.
I agree. It was way too cheap, but 5 points, not 10. 5.
So let me ask you guys a question. I saw this on the Facebook group. What would you think of? I forget what they called it, but dynamic points. So basically, burst of speed on Maul is 10 points, but burst of speed on Vader is 5.
I would think that's too convoluted.
I agree. Unless it's really necessary, right? The only thing I could kind of see is maybe if you do it between factions, just with like some of these mercenaries. But I'd rather them do like what they're doing with Boba, where you just have a completely different Boba. This is your Boba. He's different. Yeah.
Love him.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I'm gonna take this next one. I don't know where it came from. It's grappling hooks.
I can add. I know where it came from. Nick put it into the universe, and the universe was like, "We're going with it."
Grappling hooks up 1 point. I have 100 copies of grappling hooks, and I don't think a single copy has ever hit the table.
Yeah, I think I did a couple times before I understood how the game worked, and I was just filling all the slots. And that's basically it.
Yeah, I feel like I saw it the most on Nick's list. Nick really liked using grappling hook. But yeah, it
But it makes
probably
me
didn't need it.
excited because is there something coming up involving
Yeah,
terrain and
Well, I
climbing
would
and
guess,
clambering where
loadout.
grappling hooks are going to be wanted?
they're gonna do something making terrain more important, right?
Hmm.
Because they talked about, I mean, just from AMG as a company philosophy, right? Marvel Crisis Protocol cares about elevation, and it sounds like Shatterpoint's gonna care about elevation. I could see them maybe being like, oh, this is kind of what we like. Like that's just what those designers like. So maybe I could see them maybe doing something in Legion, but I don't know if they're gonna make that big of a rules change. Because like even in today's article, they talked about how they didn't really want to make big changes. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, but that's like saying,
But they kind of did though.
yeah,
Well, maybe.
yeah,
I don't know. We'll have
that's
to
like
talk about that in
saying
a minute.
Yeah, yeah.
that's like saying like I love you, but
Mhm. Yep.
Danny, you want to take the next one?
Sure. We've got offensive push going from 4 to 6. I don't like this change. I don't see any reason for it. I think 4 points is kind of the established cost of a name, right? You look at it, that's what it costs for offensive push. That's what it costs for the what's the comms one that gives you one? The emergency transponders. It's
Yeah,
Yes.
4 points.
5.
4 points is basically what we've established in Legion. It costs for a token. So I don't understand why this one's bumping up to 6. I'm not a huge fan of this change.
I like
Uh,
OP. I like it at 4 points. 6 points is going to make me reconsider.
Yeah, I had to pull 3 copies of it out of my list. I'm not happy.
yeah, I actually really like this change because I seen as E Daniel spam the offensive
I
push
do.
so much. I know it was one of those things where just like it was so cheap, you could just spam it and it was really good.
But
Whereas
this was, yeah.
well, against the emergency transponder, that's just a one-time use for 4 points. Where this one, you raise it 6 points, you can always recover, do shenanigans, shit like that.
I don't know if
Which is a
I've played a
tax in
lot of games
itself,
with 3 copies
though.
of offensive push, and I don't think I ever used any of them more than once. It was literally just like, oh yeah. I mean, because CIS doesn't have the free recovery for, I guess they do if you're using a super tactical droid, but I'm not that fancy. I was using bounty hunters. So we
Yeah.
didn't ever recover. Like this was just
Retreat
oh, I pay
hell.
4 points, I get one aim in a moment of need.
Well, let's go with the elephant in the room. Like, who is famous for spamming this or could spam this? Maul. Maul has spammed this with this third action: recover, move, attack,
Are
heavy
you
offensive
are
push.
you trying to imply that AMG is indirectly nerfing Maul?
All of these neutral commands nerf Maul. Every
Yeah, he was
single
taking
one.
a lot of grappling hooks because he
Yeah,
needed to
man.
sometimes climb and jump.
Yeah, he had to, bro. He had to. All right. Besides grappling hook, the rest of the team, yeah, nerf my boy Maul.
Why don't you take the last one for us,
I can't.
nerfer?
I can't see the last one.
I'll take the last one. Last one is situational awareness, up by 2 points.
Okay, so here's my argument with this. I agree that it needed to go up because it was probably the most spammable up training slot.
Yeah.
But they should have took away the keyword. What if it was connected to a support? It went up 4 because now it's 8 on a support, which mostly was put on Tauntauns, and Tauntauns needed love, and Tauntauns got no love, and they just got no love now.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this is probably appropriate. As someone who still has it on CAD, I think, yeah, 4 points is where this should be. There was always the Magna Guard builds where you had it at 2 points, and it was just way too cheap.
So, okay, that's my question though. Let me bring up situational awareness. Does it really,
As written now, it goes up.
really, it doesn't really. So let's see, let's go
Yeah.
Rebels. I'm just gonna add it to the list real quick. We're saying they are those guys, Tauntauns and the training slots, situational awareness, 8 points. That's crazy.
Yeah, honestly, I just wouldn't take it on Tauntauns. I don't think it's that great on them.
Just leave the Tauntauns at home.
Yeah. Well,
Tauntauns are good though.
they're fine. They're not really that good right now.
Okay, are they worse than Droidicas?
I think they're similar to Droidicas.
I think they're better than Droidicas.
I think
They
Droidicas
switched-
are in a much more competitive slot than Tauntauns are. I think if there was no other supports in Droidica's slot and no other supports in Tauntauns, I think they'd be considered pretty similar.
You know what I want to run? I want to run Tauntauns and Wookiees. and just shove them down your throat. I want to see how good
Yeah.
that would do.
I mean, it's cool. I think
Yeah.
Tauntauns are awesome and they start the game awesome, but they just don't have the staying power that you kind of need.
Yeah.
All right, guys,
you
let's
need-
let's move on because we're pushing time already.
There's actually one more upgrade that we didn't talk about
Oh, is
that
there one more?
also
Did I
affected
miss?
me very greatly. I was very
Oh.
sad about. Should
Go
be
for it.
tenacity.
Oh yeah.
Yep, single tier on that one. It makes sense.
Mhm. Another one that nerfs my boy Maul. I agree with you on that one. Didn't
Another
need
one that
happen.
hits my Magnas. My Magna build went up 10 points. 10 points per Magna unit. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, we have to change something. It's too expensive.
There's also another upgrade that we're missing. I don't know what it. I think it went 4 to 8 up close and personal.
Oh, it went 5 to 8.
It-
I forgot about that
5
one.
to 8,
5
yeah.
to 8. 5 to 8.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had an incomplete list.
I probably needed it, the nerf, the 5 to 8, because you saw it
I don't
slammed a
know.
lot.
I kind of liked where it was at because it's not like everyone was taking it. People who could shoot twice would take it,
Yeah.
and then bounty hunters would take it, which I think is fine.
I think it was
agree.
because people were spamming it on bounty hunters and they were abusing it. Whereas like all the range 2 people units were taking it to get the at least a dodge to get into range 2, right? But I think bounty
Right. I
hunters
liked it
kinda
on Mandos. It felt right on Mandos, and Mandos are already so expensive. I almost wish there was like a thing where it was like, oh, Mandos can take this for like a 3-point discount.
That
Because
is
it's
the
like
one.
they're on the card. Please let me take that without
you
paying
want
8
to make
points.
Mandos that much more harder to kill. They're really hard to kill.
That is the one change I wish would have happened is that Mandos would have been dropped in points.
Oh yeah. I
There's,
wish Blizzard Force got hit, but I'm still hoping that there's something in the rules that'll hit them. Because I feel like out of all the dominant lists, they're the only one that didn't get hit. And so that means that they're going to be dominant for a little bit. But we'll see.
do you think the Shadow Collective overshadowing Blizzard Force is why?
I don't know. At PAX, like, what was it? 2 out of the top 4 were Blizzard Force.
Mhm.
3 out of the top 4. 2 out of the top 4.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I haven't looked.
They did very well. So it's not like Blizzard Force hasn't done well. I don't know. I think my hope is that some of Shadow Collective was oppressing lists that would beat Blizzard Force. Because I felt like my list wasn't really scared of Blizzard Force, but it was terrified of Shadow Collective. And so now I'm going to run my list again, and hopefully I'll be able to fight Blizzard Force. We'll see.
All right, so let's move on to these changes. We're pushing time. I'm starting to get looks. AMG has released a new article covering line of sight. And I'm going to read you guys the quote of the article. This is not an overhaul of the Legion rules you all know and love. One more time for safety. This is not an overhaul of the Legion rules you all know and love. Now let's talk about how they just overhauled line of sight.
Yeah.
I couldn't resist that one. So Peter, why don't you lead us into this?
Okay. Well, you want me to read what they did with line of sight?
Well, yeah,
So-
just tell us what they're doing.
So pretty much, you no longer have to look at the top or the little indent in the silhouette to determine line of sight. You now can look at any part of the line of the silhouette to another silhouette to determine line of sight. So you can look at the corner, the top left corner, and if you see anybody else's silhouette, you can shoot. So effectively, you could put it behind a building, stick just that little corner, and shoot a whole squad, right?
Yep.
And I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I understand what they're doing.
Well,
But-
let's finish that silhouette thought because there's another huge change involving silhouettes, and that is vehicles. So the vehicle silhouette now is from its base up to the top of the hole. So radar
Mhm.
dishes, guns, commanders sticking out, all that doesn't matter. It's to the top of the hole.
I actually like that. I prefer
I
that.
like that, except I wish it extended beyond the base. I think it should include right? Like the AAT spills over its base. Or
The
speeder bikes. I feel like speeder bikes should
are
still have
going
their
over its
thing.
base.
So I feel
So
like there's
that's
some things where I'm not a huge fan, but overall, like it simplifies. And so I think that's nice.
because that's
Well,
what it is now.
it's always
So now I'm gonna have my bark speeder, which will say is my pin. My pin. Oh, it's not even gonna show up. There it goes. And then I'm gonna hide it behind cover, but my bark speeder is going to stick out just a little bit. It's not gonna work.
That's-
So now
yeah.
I'm gonna be completely blocked because my base is blocked,
Hmm.
even though you can see the tip of my bark.
Yeah. I'm not 100%
But-
sure that's how it's going to work with speeders. Because with speeders, your base doesn't count as part of the model. So they might have something different with speeders because you can't have the silhouette start at the base if the base isn't part of the vehicle.
But
So
I kind of prefer that. Like with the dewbacks, you know, this tail would stick out or the head would stick out, and it was just always a feel bad thing where you're just like, I could see a little bit of his head and I could just shoot it. Where
It's a
everything,
dewback.
even troopers are all relying on base. Like you got Grievous with 4 lightsabers hanging out like this over his base. Like the silhouette was a godsend when Grievous came out, and then dewbacks should have the same thing. Why not?
See, okay,
you're just
I'm
happy because your
actually-
samurai horses work now.
I'm actually 100% against silhouettes in the first place. Because they have models of a guy kneeling. So now it doesn't matter. Yoda being 2 feet tall doesn't matter.
Good.
I think it's fine. I feel like it makes it because you can play 99% of your game the same way, and it's just going to come up in a couple situations, right? And I think it's nice to have a really clear rule for when it comes up. Oh yeah, if it comes up, the really clear rule is you just look at the base. Can you see the base?
But it's a couple key situations.
Well, sure, but I mean, anything can be a key situation.
This takes away the power from all the tryhards because you're going to be modeling for advantage, and it's going to come down to your wallet, right? People are going to make models into Grievous, all its lightsabers like this, balled over, hunched over, you know, and that was just not good for the game at all. Whereas the silhouette makes it,
Yeah,
well, you can model however you want.
but we don't see that much with vehicles, right? Like if you look at vehicles today, it's not like you see a ton of ones that are modeled for advantage. You used to have like a couple ATSTs, and you could still have ATSTs in that same way because you can have them taller, and that's still top of their hole. But you know, it's not like a huge problem with the game where I'm like, oh, Legion is terrible because everyone's always modeling their vehicles for advantage. I don't know.
I mean,
I just don't see it as a
technically-
huge issue.
technically the lat bus, that was a thing when they fixed it, where if you had the doors
Yeah,
open,
the bus
like-
was a problem. The lat and the bus were a problem, but then they just put out a rule about it, and that was good.
yeah, fix that way.
So let's talk about some cover and LOS. So determining LOS now. So any part of the defending miniature silhouette is blocked by terrain other than terrain in base contact with the attacking unit leader, and part of the silhouette is still visible. The defending miniature is obscured.
So the only difference here is what? You don't have to do center of base to center of base.
Right. It's
No.
any part. If I have let me see here. Any mission is blocked. So if I'm completely out in the open, but the way I put it is the corner edge of my silhouette is behind cover, I am now considered in cover.
Yeah.
Still got to be half the unit, but it's
No.
problematic.
No, it is
it's
not
prob-
half the unit.
Half the
It's
minis
half-
in the unit.
Half the minis is what I meant.
Right. Half the minis,
it
yes,
is-
but
It's problematic for single units.
I was about to say, let's take Nick's example.
Mhm.
My ATST just got cover from a barricade.
See, I don't know if that's actually going to be how it is because, right, we don't have the word for word rules from AMG yet. And even today, they realized there was a misunderstanding. And so they released another part of the rules they'd already written about taking wounds. So I think there's more to these rules than they're telling us about. And I think like the discussion at the beginning of the game, I don't think that's going to change that much. You'll still be like, oh, barricades, that's no good for an ATST. This building is tiny, not good for an ATST. But this one, the ATST can hide behind. All this rule is saying is that during the game, if the ATST is behind the thing you already said it can hide behind, any part of it, then it gets cover.
Yeah.
So
Because
I
because
think
like the example that you guys were talking about in the Discord was it's already written that barricades give ground vehicles cover, but if you build a wall of terrain that's technically not a barricade, and you're gonna tell your opponent like, yeah, that can give uh it could give heavy cover to my ATS. He's like, nah, come on.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know
well,
if that rule is going to change or not. We just don't
so
know because they just haven't said.
so based off of AMG's track history, I honestly think it's their wording that is messed up. I think when they're putting defending unit, when I think they mean trooper unit.
I don't think so because you have to determine cover for every defending unit. You've always had
Right.
this step. The only difference between this step now and what it used to be is that now it doesn't have the center of base to center of base.
Right.
Because it
But
used to
I
be it
think,
had to obscure some and center of base to center base had to be obscured.
well,
And
so
that second part isn't there anymore.
the reason I think it's trooper unit is because I think that the vehicles are going to have, I agree that they're still going to have different rules for their cover.
Maybe.
So I think
All
what
you
they
gotta do
teach today, they were thinking like just for your normal trooper units.
All
Yeah.
you gotta do to fix it is change the minis into the unit, half the unit. Boom.
But then that's no change at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. If half of the unit is obscured, it's fine.
So
I don't know. I think,
let's-
yeah, I want to see when they actually publish the rules because I think probably this is not going to be as big a change as people are thinking. The big change, I think, is just going to be the assigning wounds. I think that's going to be the only thing that's a real big deal.
which we're gonna get into right here. When a
Before we
unit
get into that,
suffers, oh, go
you
ahead.
want to talk about the notch base trooper silhouette? What is this?
Yeah, that's a really confusing picture.
Yeah, is
That's
it
your
like
your vehicles,
sideways?
isn't it?
No, that's the notch base trooper.
So it'd be for like the mortar for the short
Yeah.
troopers and for like I guess it'd be for creature troopers too, right?
Yeah,
Because those are
creature
notch
troop-
based troopers.
Yep, dubats.
So it
And I'm
looks like they're gonna
confused
have
by it.
another silhouette for them.
Is this supposed to be
I bet-
sideways?
I think
I
this
don't-
picture is very confusing, and I think that once you see it in 3D, it'll make more sense. So I'm just kind of
I hope
ignoring
so.
it for now. That's my
Yeah.
philosophy. I don't understand, so I'll wait till they say.
So let's go down to when a unit suffers wounds from an attack, if the attacker has LOS to only some of the miniatures and the defending unit cannot suffer wounds greater than the total wound threshold of miniatures that are in its LOS, which is great. It's standard. That's the way it is.
Mhm.
But the other change with wounds is now if I have my sniper out in the open and a full arc squad behind cover, I am now assigning wounds as I see fit, even though that the squad is not in LOS. So my sniper can stay still for 5 turns and not die, and just I kill off the full arc squad.
Yeah.
That's the big change, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's huge of not having to reposition that sniper.
No, I like it. Well, I don't know. I see the purpose of this rule. They're trying to eliminate some of the cheese, right? Because we have the very famous sniper cheese where, you send your one sniper forward and then he dies and he teleports. And that was always stupid. And so to eliminate that cheese, they do this. Oh, you can't, it's not going to just kill the one that you can see, all the other stuff. But the truth is, it's just going to change the kind of cheese, right? Because now you have the cheese where, oh, I can take my heavy weapon and put it in the middle, and my heavy weapon will just be shooting away, and it can only take 1 wound. It's going to be hard to pull that off because you have to hide 5 dudes. But if you can, it's just a different kind of cheese. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I think this is kind of a neutral rules change in my mind. I like that it is consistent with the Amban rifle because then people won't be as confused when that happens. But I think it's borderline unnecessary.
I agree with you. I kind of like the change because it's no longer sniping heavies that are out of position. That's always usually
That was always feel bad.
Yeah, it was always made by a new player too because they were just like not knew how it's played. Now it just gets rid of that altogether. So
they won't be able to
the
snipe
B2
boxes off of people.
So
the
I
B2 thing
agree.
where you shoot attack series and then you have to get rid of a B2 model. That's 2 health instead of a 1 health. That was always feel bad too.
I agree and I disagree. So I agree with what you guys are saying. Like this is going to be a potentially a nice change, but I disagree with the heavies because that's the risk. To me, in my eyes, if you're running a heavy, you're going to protect that heavy, and
Yeah.
if you're going to leave them out, because I'm gonna in a war, in a real battle, if I am a sniper and I have a perfect shot at a freaking Gatling gun, that Gatling gun's dead. I don't care who's around me.
Okay. All right. Hold on though.
But in
Hold
that
on, though. You're
case,
talking-
attacker should just always pick wounds, right? Because it's like, sniper was picking this guy, right? And we've never had that in Legion.
You're talking about a war, which makes sense, over a game that's made to play to have fun, right? There's so much about positioning in this game already that the excessive amount of positioning is just cumbersome. And I feel like this
Yeah.
eliminates some of that cumbersome.
But that's where I would say that I don't think it really does. Because it's like what Adam was saying with that other example. It just throws in a different kind of cumbersome. Oh, you gotta remember, you're not gonna actually be able to kill that guy in the middle because he's just gonna kill one of his friends that are behind the wall. Okay, different kind of cheese. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna accomplish almost anything.
But then
Yeah,
again,
probably the
I agree with Daniel's statement earlier. I don't think this is the full rules.
Yeah.
Well, I almost guaranteed this is not the full rules. So it is going to be interesting to see what else has changed, to see if this is really more cheese or not a complete overhaul. I had to use my
Yeah.
announcing voice on that
Yeah.
one.
It's just, you guys are right. It's just a different kind of cheese. It went in the right direction, that kind of cheese, but creating more cheese, which honestly, I don't think it's going to be coming up that much often. Like hiding
Right.
5 guys behind
hiding
the line of
5 guys is
sight blockers.
hard.
Yeah,
It's really hard
yeah.
to have 5 guys hiding successfully and throw out one heavy. That's
Mm.
difficult. If you're doing
Well,
that successfully where they can't be angled at all, you should be rewarded, I guess. It's weird,
And-
but sure.
Let's be honest as well. It doesn't really matter the rules and the changes that happen. Our community has players, and not just our Star Wars Legion community, but any community. We're gonna find the cheese.
Yep. And that's what I
Well-
feel like this is. This is them being like, oh, we see the stupid sniper cheese. Got rid of that. And then immediately people are like, well, now I'm going to do a Gatling gun cheese in the middle of the map. It's
Yep.
like, okay.
Well, that's the great argument, right? Is there
Yeah.
a heavy weapon that justifies 5 dudes that are not going to contribute to the dice pool?
I would say like for fire supporting. Yeah. If you have a unit that's going to just fire support, I'd put a clone trooper unit in the middle of the map that's going to just fire support the whole game. And they just slowly die. And they're just contributing the one heavy weapon. 6 extra dice into a dice pool is a big deal.
But you could be adding 4 more. Well,
Z,
Wow.
Yeah.
a Z6 fire supporting the sniper round.
That's what I would do. It'd be so hard to position that. But if you get it, I mean, that's what I would aim for.
Yeah, but I just don't see it being like, oh, this guy needs to hide, and
Yeah.
this
Well,
one
I think
heavy is my
what you
grace.
might see is instead of strike teams, you'll see Imperials taking the sniper with like the full squad, and the sniper stands out and shoots. And then if you shoot at them, you just kill one of their guys in the back. So it's
Yep.
like a more
But that's
expensive
such-
strike team.
Yeah, that's so expensive just for a 1 sniper shot. Like,
Well, but then
to
that
me,
strike
that's not
team's-
worth it.
That strike team's not really as vulnerable, so it can actually play objectives and stuff. You know, push comes to shove, all of a sudden you've got a whole bunch of scout troopers who are shooting 2 blacks in your face.
It's
I just don't see it.
expensive, but if played right, high risk, high reward. If it's played right, it's gonna pay off, and it's gonna pay off great. If you're
But the
gonna play
only
it
reason why
wrong,
you're taking snipers is act padding. That's the only reason why you're taking them.
That's the truth. I'm actually really curious to see what this does to the meta. I think we might see like lists drop to 9 acts instead of 10, just as a general rule, just because strike teams will be so vulnerable. They either
Mhm.
can't contribute or they risk dying, which I like.
Mhm.
They shouldn't be able to contribute safely for the whole game. So
all right, gents, we're gonna have to call it. We've reached time. JR, any final thoughts?
If anybody's looking for a game, gonna be at Go Back Gaming on Wednesday around 5. So want to try out a new LVL list? So shoot me a message.
Daniel?
don't worry about the cheese. There'll always be cheese.
I think that's the episode title right there. There will always be cheese.
Yep.
For me, we will not be podcast or live streaming the games this week from Go Back Gaming. I'm gonna start my Christmas break a little bit early. And this has been a fun time, great time. Gentlemen, thank you for doing this with me. I look forward to listening to seeing what you got, where you guys take this in the future.
Yeah.
Awesome.
have you,
So for the last time, guys, thank you for joining us. Everybody out in podcast land, thank you for listening.